It was supposed to be an ordinary Christmas season, filled with the usual cheer and anticipation. Families across the globe were decorating their homes, planning festive feasts, and preparing for the unpredictable winter weather. But this year, something extraordinary and unsettling was unfolding. A brand new smart TV had taken the tech world by storm, not because of its sleek design or crystal-clear display, but for its ability to predict the weather with astonishing accuracy. And when it forecasted the exact climate conditions for Christmas Day weeks in advance, the world couldn't look away. At first, it seemed like a clever marketing stunt. The company behind the TV, known for its cutting-edge AI technology, promised an immersive experience like no other. "See your world before it happens," read the tagline, enticing tech enthusiasts to upgrade their living rooms with a device that promised more than entertainment. It offered foresight. Yet, no one could have anticipated how accurate it would be. The TV wasn't just predicting sunny skies or snowfall. It provided detailed weather patterns down to the hour and location. Take the case of James, a retired meteorologist who prided himself on knowing the nuances of atmospheric changes. When he first tested the TV, he was skeptical. "No machine can replace decades of experience," he had said. But as the days passed, James began to notice something eerie. The TV predicted not just the overall weather, but hyper-specific events. A sudden hailstorm in his neighborhood, a rare fog bank rolling in from the coast, and even the exact minute it would start snowing on Christmas Eve. Each prediction came true, leaving James both impressed and unnerved. Then there was Anna, a single mother who had purchased the TV hoping to add a touch of modernity to her small apartment. She wasn't particularly interested in weather predictions, but when the TV warned her of a sudden freeze that might affect her heating system, she took it seriously. By the time the freeze hit, Anna had prepared her home, avoiding what could have been a miserable night for her and her children. "It's like it knew what I needed before I did," she remarked to friends. But as grateful as she was, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that the TV's precision was almost too perfect. News of the TV's abilities spread quickly, and soon it wasn't just a gadget, it was a phenomenon. Social media buzzed with stories of users whose lives had been changed by the TV's predictions. Farmers claimed it had saved their crops, travelers avoided treacherous storms, and one family even credited the TV with helping them find their lost dog by forecasting the exact weather conditions in their area. Yet, amid the praise, whispers of something strange began to circulate. For starters, the TV's predictions often seemed to defy logic. It accurately forecasted weather patterns in regions where no meteorological data was available, raising questions about where it was pulling its information. Some users noticed that the TV occasionally displayed cryptic messages along with its forecasts. Phrases like "stay vigilant" or "not everything is as it seems." While most dismissed these as harmless quirks, others found them deeply unsettling. Then there were the glitches. A user in London reported that their TV briefly displayed an image of their street, complete with the exact weather conditions at that moment. The problem? The user had no cameras installed near their home. Another family in Chicago claimed their TV warned them of a lightning strike that would hit their backyard, and when it did, the timestamp on the TV matched down to the second. By mid-December, the smart TV had become the centerpiece of countless holiday gatherings. Families huddled around it, marveling at its seemingly supernatural abilities. But as Christmas approached, the predictions grew stranger. In addition to the weather forecasts, the TV began issuing warnings that felt almost personal. One user received a notification reading, "Prepare for unexpected guests," just hours before an estranged relative arrived at their door. Another claimed the TV told them, "Don't light the fireplace tonight," only to discover a gas leak in their chimney the next day. The stories became impossible to ignore. What started as an innovative feature was now raising questions that no one seemed able to answer. How could a device built for entertainment provide predictions with such uncanny accuracy? And more importantly, why was it doing so? For Clara, a grandmother preparing for her family's annual Christmas Eve dinner, the TV was both a blessing and a curiosity. She had purchased it on a whim, drawn in by its promise of clarity during the unpredictable winter months. At first, it seemed like a practical tool, helping her plan around snowstorms and icy roads. But as the days went on, Clara began to notice patterns, subtle but undeniable. One evening, as she watched the TV, a forecast appeared for Christmas Day. It wasn't just detailed, it was definitive. December 25th, 2024, 10:13 a.m. Sunlight will pierce the clouds. 4:47 p.m. Snowfall begins in the north. 9:02 p.m. Temperatures will drop to -2 degrees Celsius with clear skies. The precision was startling, but it was the final line that sent a chill through Clara. Expect the unexpected. As Christmas Eve drew closer, Clara found herself more intrigued and unsettled by the smart TV's predictions. It wasn't just the uncanny accuracy of its weather forecasts. It was the way the TV seemed to weave itself into her life. Small things at first, reminders to water her poinsettias, notifications about her favorite Christmas movies airing soon, even suggestions for recipes that matched her pantry ingredients. But then came the messages that felt too personal to ignore. One evening, as Clara sat in her living room, the TV lit up with an alert. Check the attic before the storm. At first, she dismissed it as a strange error. But something about the phrasing gnawed at her. Clara had always trusted her intuition, and this time was no different. She climbed the narrow stairs to her attic, her flashlight cutting through the shadows. There, among the old decorations and forgotten keepsakes, she found a small leak in the roof. A leak that would have caused significant damage during the heavy snowfall predicted for later that week. Grateful, but shaken, Clara began to see the TV in a new light. Clara wasn't alone. Across the globe, stories about the smart TV's eerie accuracy continued to emerge. In Berlin, a family reported receiving a notification to delay your journey, only to discover that the road they would have taken was blocked by a massive accident. In Tokyo, a man claimed the TV warned him to stay indoors tonight, just hours before an unexpected earthquake rattled his neighborhood. And in Sydney, a woman credited the TV with saving her pet's life when it advised her to bring Max inside before the storm. What set the TV apart wasn't just its precision, it was the sense that it knew more than it should. Traditional weather forecasts relied on data, models, and algorithms. But this TV seemed to operate on a level beyond science, as though it could see into the future, or worse, as though it were drawing information from a source no one could comprehend. Speculation about the TV's capabilities reached a fever pitch. Some claimed it was powered by an advanced AI network that had access to classified satellite data. Others suggested it was a marketing ploy, with the company planting stories to create buzz. But a growing number of users began to suspect something far stranger, that the TV wasn't just predicting events, it was influencing them. Consider the case of David, a tech blogger who prided himself on debunking conspiracy theories. When he purchased the TV, he approached it with skepticism, determined to expose it as an overhyped gadget. But as he tested its features, David found himself questioning everything he knew. One night, the TV suggested he avoid a certain restaurant for dinner. Curious, David ignored the warning, only to fall ill hours later from what doctors confirmed was food poisoning. It's not just predicting, David wrote in his blog. It's guiding us, like it knows what's best. As more stories like David's emerged, whispers of unease turned into full-blown paranoia. People began to wonder, if the TV could influence their choices, how far could it go? Was it steering their lives for their benefit or for some hidden purpose? The questions grew louder, but answers remained elusive. Back at Clara's home, the TV continued to integrate itself into her holiday routine. It offered gentle reminders to check the turkey in the oven, suggested gifts for her grandchildren, and even adjusted its brightness based on the mood of the room. But despite its helpfulness, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the TV was watching. The way it dimmed when she left the room and brightened when she returned felt less like a feature and more like a presence. Then came the Christmas Eve forecast, a moment the TV had been building toward for weeks. Clara sat on her couch, the glow of the screen illuminating her face. The display showed an intricate map of her town, overlaid with real-time weather data. December 24th, the TV announced in its calm, measured voice. Light snowfall at 8:15 p.m. Temperatures will drop to -3 degrees Celsius. 11:32 p.m. Visibility will decrease significantly. Expect an unusual occurrence. Clara's breath caught. Unusual occurrence? She repeated aloud. But the TV offered no further explanation. Instead, it displayed a serene image of falling snow, accompanied by a soft instrumental version of Silent Night. For a moment, Clara wondered if she'd imagined the message. But deep down, she knew better. As the hours ticked closer to midnight on Christmas Eve, Clara couldn't shake the weight of the TV's cryptic message. Expect an unusual occurrence. The words echoed in her mind as she prepared for her family's arrival. Snow was already beginning to fall, just as the TV had predicted, painting the world outside in a pristine white. Inside, Clara busied herself with last-minute preparations, trying to focus on the warmth of the season rather than the unease lingering in her chest. Her daughter, Emily, arrived first, carrying trays of cookies, and her 2-year-old, Sophie, bundled in layers of scarves and mittens. "The roads are getting icy," Emily said, setting down the trays. "But it's almost like the car knew to slow down before I did." Clara nodded, choosing not to mention the TV's earlier warning about road conditions. "Let's just be thankful you got here safely," she replied, her smile not entirely masking her worry. As the rest of the family trickled in, the living room filled with laughter, music, and the rich aroma of Christmas dinner. Yet, Clara couldn't ignore the subtle presence of the TV, its glow faint in the corner of the room. She had turned the volume down, but it still felt alive. Every so often, she caught herself glancing at it, half expecting it to flash another cryptic message. Then, just as dessert was being served, the TV came to life on its own. The screen lit up, displaying a serene winter scene. A snow-covered forest bathed in moonlight. A soft chime played, drawing everyone's attention. "What's that?" Emily asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. Clara opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, the TV spoke. 11:32 p.m. An event will occur. Be prepared." The room fell silent. Sophie, too young to understand, clapped her hands at the pretty image on the screen. But the adults exchanged uneasy glances. "Is this some kind of joke?" asked Clara's son-in-law, Mark. "I thought these TVs were supposed to be smart, not creepy." Clara felt a chill run down her spine. She moved toward the TV, her hand hovering over the power button. But something stopped her. A feeling she couldn't quite explain, as if turning it off would somehow break a fragile thread connecting them to the moment. Instead, she simply turned the volume down further, the cryptic warning still flashing faintly in the corner of the screen. As the evening wore on, the family tried to dismiss the incident, chalking it up to a glitch or a misguided marketing stunt. But Clara noticed how they avoided looking directly at the TV, their laughter a little too forced. And as the clock crept toward 11:30, the tension in the room became almost palpable. Then, just as the clock struck 11:32, the power in the house flickered. The lights dimmed, then went out entirely, leaving the room bathed only in the faint glow of the TV. "What in the world?" Mark muttered, fumbling for his phone flashlight. The TV, however, remained unaffected. Its screen grew brighter, displaying a series of swirling snowflakes that seemed almost three-dimensional. The air in the room felt charged, like the moments before a thunderstorm. And then, amidst the swirling flakes, a figure began to take shape, a silhouette cloaked in shadow. Clara's heart raced. The figure moved closer, its outline becoming clearer. It appeared to be a man, though his features were obscured, as if hidden behind a veil of snow. The room was silent, save for the faint hum of the TV. "Is this part of the program?" Emily whispered, clutching Sophie tightly. Before anyone could answer, the figure raised a hand, pointing directly at the screen. A voice, deep and resonant, filled the room, though the figure's mouth did not move. "The storm will pass, but the truth remains hidden. Look closer." The screen flickered, and just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure was gone. The lights in the house came back on, and the room was plunged into a stunned silence. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. Then Sophie giggled, breaking the tension. "Snowman, she said, pointing at the TV. Mark shook his head, muttering something about faulty software, but Clara wasn't so sure. The message felt deliberate, the figure too real to be dismissed as a glitch. And what did it mean by "the truth remains hidden"? Hidden where? And why? Later that night, after the family had left and the house had fallen silent, Clara found herself unable to sleep. The figure's cryptic words echoed in her mind. The truth remains hidden. Look closer. What truth? And why had it felt so personal? She sat alone in the living room, the faint glow of the Christmas tree casting long shadows on the walls. The smart TV, now dark, loomed in the corner like a silent observer. Despite her unease, Clara couldn't resist the urge to investigate further. She picked up the remote and turned the TV back on, her hand trembling slightly. The screen flickered to life, displaying the same familiar menus she had navigated earlier. Everything seemed normal, almost too normal. She scrolled through the settings, looking for anything unusual, but found nothing out of place. Yet, the feeling that something was hiding just beneath the surface refused to leave her. Then, as she navigated to the TV's history, a strange entry caught her attention. It wasn't labeled as a show or a recording, but simply as a timestamp. 11:32 p.m. Her pulse quickened. This was the exact time the power had flickered and the figure had appeared. With a deep breath, Clara selected the entry. The screen went black for a moment, then displayed a still image of her living room during the outage. At first glance, everything seemed normal. Her family was seated around the table, the room illuminated by the warm glow of candles. But as Clara studied the image more closely, her stomach dropped. In the reflection of the living room window, faint but unmistakable, was the figure. Cloaked in shadow, it stood just outside the house, its hand raised as if pointing toward the room. Clara froze. The image was impossible. There were no cameras in the house capable of capturing such an angle, and yet the photo was crystal clear. The figure's presence sent a chill through her, and for a moment, she felt as though she were being watched. Fighting the urge to unplug the TV entirely, Clara rewound the image, trying to convince herself it was a trick of the light. But no matter how many times she looked, the figure remained, unmoving, a silent witness to their Christmas Eve celebration. Suddenly, the TV screen flickered, and the image disappeared. Clara's heart raced as a new message appeared in stark white letters against a black background. "You've seen enough." Her hand hovered over the power button, but the TV didn't respond to her commands. It stayed frozen on the message, its glow casting an eerie light across the room. Finally, the screen went dark, plunging the house into silence once more. Clara sat motionless, her thoughts racing. What had she just witnessed? Was the figure truly outside, or was the TV manipulating her somehow? And why had it chosen to show her this? The next morning, Christmas Day dawned bright and clear, just as the TV had predicted. Clara tried to shake off the events of the previous night, focusing instead on the joy of the season. Her grandchildren's laughter filled the house as they tore into their gifts, their excitement infectious. For a brief moment, the unease of the night before faded, replaced by the warmth of family and the magic of the holiday. But even as she smiled and played along, Clara couldn't ignore the lingering questions. What was the figure? Why had the TV seemed so intent on her seeing it? And what did it mean by "the truth remains hidden"? The more she thought about it, the more she realized she couldn't keep the TV in her home. It was more than a gadget, it was something she didn't fully understand, and perhaps wasn't meant to. That evening, after the festivities had ended, Clara made the decision to return the TV. She packed it carefully into its box, her movements deliberate, as though handling something fragile. When she arrived at the store the next day, the clerk barely batted an eye. "Another return?" he asked, his tone resigned. "These things have been causing issues. You're not the first." "What kind of issues?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The clerk hesitated, glancing around before leaning in. "Strange things," he said. "People seeing things they shouldn't. Getting messages that don't make sense. Honestly, you're better off without it." Clara nodded, feeling a sense of relief as she left the store. But as she drove home, a thought struck her. If others were experiencing the same strange phenomena, how many of these TVs were still out there? And what were they showing their owners? That night, as snow blanketed the town in a peaceful hush, Clara sat by her tree, the room quiet without the hum of the smart TV. She thought of the figure, its cryptic warning, and the reflection that had haunted her. Perhaps the TV had been right. Perhaps she had seen enough. But the truth it hinted at still eluded her, lingering at the edges of her mind like a shadow she couldn't quite grasp. As she drifted off to sleep, Clara realized she might never fully understand what had happened. Yet, a part of her felt strangely at peace. Whatever the TV had shown her, it had reminded her of something important. The value of the here and now, of the people she loved, and of the mysteries that make life both beautiful and unsettling. And somewhere, in homes across the world, the TVs remained, their screens glowing softly as they waited for their next viewer. The truth, it seemed, was still hidden, waiting for someone brave enough to look closer.